If 5 Republicans go with Democrats, then I'm out.
The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
For the first time in U.S. history, the Speaker of the House has been ousted. Kevin McCarthy, gone. And why? I'm still not really sure. This whole fight, this whole civil war within the Republican Party is so completely bizarre to me because none of them are really trying to get anything done anyways. So to have this fight over who's at the head of this Congress that doesn't do shit anyways is a little bizarre. But let me get to this. And I got some clips, including from both sides of the Republican fight, as well as a video from a Democrat and why they didn't vote for McCarthy either. Let's first start with why this all began. And that is, of course, Matt Gaetz, who loves the camera. Gaetz, who has had a long, contentious relationship with McCarthy, threatened to introduce the motion for weeks if McCarthy allowed a continuing resolution to stop a government shutdown to come to the floor. And that happened over the weekend, on Saturday. So there was no shutdown. So Gaetz is like, all right, how dare you keep the government open? You're gone, buddy. And that was it. So I'll get to how the votes broke down in a second here. But this was great from Kyle Griffin here. A handful of moderate House Democrats have received calls from Republicans asking them to vote to save Kevin McCarthy's job. One source describes those calls as begging, and not a single Democrat voted to keep McCarthy. Here is Pramila Jayapal discussing why Democrats had no interest. This is before the vote, but discussing why Democrats at this point have no interest in supporting McCarthy.
How is this going to play out?
We are not voting in any way that would help save Speaker McCarthy.
So either present or voting against him.
This does impact Democrats in a sense, right? I mean, you guys are trying to fund the government. You're trying to pass the Farm Bill. You're trying to pass
a Democratic problem. As much as anybody out here might want to make it a Democratic problem, this is not a Democratic problem. This is a Republican problem. They supposedly have the majority. They should be able to pick their own speaker. Our speaker is Hakeem Jeffries. It always has been. It was for 15 rounds. It will continue to be.
So does that mean
here that just nobody trusts Kevin McCarthy?
Nobody trusts Kevin McCarthy. Nobody trusts Kevin McCarthy. And why should we? He has broken his commitment over and over again. And it's not just the deal with President Biden. It's not just the Ukraine funding, which apparently was also a deal, but then it wasn't a deal on, unless we secure the border. It's also going back to January 6th. And I think for a lot of us, we were here. It is still deeply emotional for us because it is about our country. It's about why we came to Congress. And Kevin McCarthy stood on the House floor and said one thing and then talked to Donald Trump and immediately did something else. He has supported the insurrectionist president that enabled January 6th to happen and tried to obstruct the peaceful transfer of power.
Hey, good enough for me. Why would Democrats back McCarthy? He hasn't worked with them in any way. He pretended at some points to try and, rhetorically criticize Trump, but then actually doesn't when it comes down to it. He changes his mind when it comes to actually doing anything. At no point has he ever tried to work with Democrats in any real way. And this has led to him now being ousted. There were, I've seen some other discussions from journalists where they were talking to Democrats who said, if McCarthy had tried to come to them with something, then they may have saved his job, but he didn't. Now, the math there is that, well, the more McCarthy gives in to Democrats, that he would lose likely more Republican votes, making it potentially harder for him to keep the position. But I mean, he's out now. He may as well have tried something, and he didn't, so he's gone. But one of the more interesting parts about this is he may try again to be speaker. Like, this doesn't prevent him from trying to be speaker again. So he may try again. The difference this time is if he wants to actually hold a strong vote, he's going to have to get Democrats on board. So he's going to have to give something up to Democrats to get their vote. But again, if he does too much of that, then he potentially loses more Republican votes and then doesn't have any chance at all. So this is all so ridiculous. If that's already become clear, this is all very, very ridiculous. But by Democrats voting to oust him, along with Matt Gaetz and their crew, this has helped to enable, or at least not enable, but kind of stand out of the way while this civil war in the Republican Party goes on. And I think it's beneficial for Democrats to allow that to happen. Now, this, of course, after Jayapal there and some other interviews, McCarthy, the vote was held, McCarthy ousted. The vote broke down 216 to 210 with Patrick McHenry, a close McCarthy ally, now serving as the acting speaker until a new one is elected. Gaetz, as I said, introduced the motion to vacate on Monday, with 8 Republicans joining all House Democrats on a final vote. And Republicans voting no included Andy Biggs, Ken Buck, Tim Burchett, Eli Crane, Matt Gaetz, Bob Good, Nancy Mace, and Matt Rosendale. And ahead of the vote, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffrey said it was now the responsibility of the GOP members to end the House Republican civil war. So this is, I think, this is working out well for Democrats, because this is kind of showcasing how completely chaotic the Republican Party is. And nothing, again, is really going to get done anyways, or very little gets done, because the GOP hold the House, Democrats hold the Senate. It's hard to really pass anything in a situation like that, at least in the way things are currently operating. So having this kind of be the circus, the focus of attention right now from the media, I think it helps Democrats, especially in more swing districts where Democrats could pick up some seats in the next election. Now, let's get to what Matt Gaetz was saying. So I just saw this and this was funny. Ian Bremer here saying, hard to say what motivates Matt Gaetz. And Matt Gaetz surrounded by the cameras. While I was watching the vote, one thing that really stood out to me is how many members of the House I am not familiar with. Yet I'm very familiar with Matt Gaetz. And that's because he puts himself in situations like this. He loves being the focus of attention. Like, again, there are hundreds of members of the House. There's many people you likely have never heard of. But you've all heard of Matt Gaetz, because he thrusts himself out there in the middle of all of this, and he absolutely loves it. So let's get to part of his speech on the floor while they were holding this vote, and why he is anti-McCarthy.
The welfare programs that they said that they streamlined with their welfare to work stuff, they're actually going to grow. Because while they did work requirements, they blew out those programs with expanded eligibility. I'm real glad you guys didn't put work requirements on Medicaid. It probably would have resulted in Medicaid expansion. And when it comes to how those raise money, I take no lecture on asking patriotic Americans to weigh in and contribute to this fight from those who would grovel and bend knee for the lobbyists and special interests who own our leadership, who have, boo all you want, who have hollowed out this town and have borrowed against the future of our future generations.
What really stood out to me about this speech, and of course there were many of these speeches, this went on for like an hour, and I cut this one down as well, because more than like a minute of Matt Gaetz is a minute too long. But he goes in this speech from talking shit about welfare and Medicaid to very important programs for the vast majority of working people, or at least people that at some point may need it if they're struggling, to how, he's different because he doesn't take corporate money. So, like, how are you different if you still fight for destroying the lives of everyday people? You can't claim to be different simply because you claim you don't take corporate money, yet still act in the interests of massive corporations. Like, this whole populist angle that Matt Gaetz tries to play up is so ridiculous to me, because he's no different than anybody else on that side. He doesn't fight for healthcare for all. He doesn't fight to have universal childcare. He doesn't fight for issues that would actually affect the lives of most people in a positive way. I think one or two things that he may be, is he pro marijuana legalization, he may be that. I forget. He may be that. I guess that's something, if that's even true. But there's not a whole lot that differentiates Matt Gaetz from the others. So to go and pretend that you are above all these people who take this corporate money. Look, yeah, they're all trash. I agree with you. You are also trash for pretending that you're any different from them. But this gets to Elise Stefanik. So this is one of the defenses of McCarthy. And of course, again, the vast majority of Republicans in that room voted to keep McCarthy. These are just one of the arguments here, but this is not really a good one.
Kevin McCarthy is a happy warrior. He is tireless. He has that uniquely American grit. Under Kevin's speakership that lasted 15 rounds of him never giving up, this Republican majority has exceeded all expectations.
This Republican majority has exceeded all expectations. If that doesn't work for you, how about McCarthy is a happy warrior? All right, well, I wasn't convinced before, but now that you reminded me that McCarthy is a happy warrior, I'm voting to keep Kevin McCarthy. What defense is this? Elise Stefanik also goes on. I believe that it was. I watched this hour. I watched almost the whole thing. But I believe Elise Stefanik goes on to also support McCarthy because he called her on her birthday, and he calls others on their birthday or congratulates them when they have a child that's born. Like, just he's sometimes a nice guy to me. So you should support him as speaker. Look, when it comes to politics, being nice is, honestly, it probably works a lot of the time. But it shouldn't. That should not be the reason to support somebody in any leadership position. It should be because of the qualities that they could put forward in that position, things that they can maybe get done, their ability to work with a whole range of people, a whole range of views to accomplish something. It should not be because he called you on your birthday and that he's a happy warrior. Those should not be on the list of reasons to support McCarthy. But let me get to this clip from over the weekend, because this also goes to why Democrats were not happy with McCarthy.
Most of it in the press probably thought we would have shut down yesterday, too. But no, we did not.
Were you confident we wouldn't shut down?
I was confident I could get something on the floor to make sure the option that we would not.
But
that
you
our
weren't sure it was
military
gonna pass.
Well, I wasn't sure it was going to pass. You want to know why? Because the Democrats tried to do everything they can not to let it pass. They did
Democrats were the ones who voted for this in a larger number than Republicans to keep the continuing resolution alive.
Did you watch the floor yesterday?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
90 Republicans voted against it.
Kevin McCarthy over the weekend tried to pin a potential shutdown on Democrats when they're the ones that voted in larger numbers to keep the government open, when it's the Republicans that have been trying to shut it down. So all of this, attempting to blame Democrats when clearly there is no blame to be had, it also goes to why Democrats just didn't like Kevin McCarthy. Why save this guy's job when this is the same weekend that Democrats voted to keep the government open and he blames them for almost shutting it down? No, McCarthy's a clown. So I'm glad he's gone. It doesn't mean he'll be replaced by anybody better, but why keep the clown? Let the clown go. Let's get another clown in. See if that clown has some other quirks you can work with. I don't know. But last thing here, this is just fun to watch. Here is the, as Ron puts it here, the walk of shame. Let's do, I can't do full screen. Let me go small because we got to see this. Here we go.
Congressman, will you resign?
What's next?
Congressman, will you resign? Will you resign?
Will you put yourself back on the ballot, sir?
Did you mock the congressman's face? Don't hold me on.
Will you resign? We'll see if he puts his name back in. I have a feeling he will. I do think, though, let me make a prediction right now. I feel like Steve Scalise is going to be the House Speaker. He seems someone who's different enough. He's aligned with McCarthy, so he'll get the McCarthy votes. But he speaks enough, garbage to maybe appease some of the crazies to get enough votes to become speaker. So we're going to have to see. That's my guess. I think it's going to be Steve Scalise. But this could be another long, drawn-out process. It's going to be tough. regardless of whoever it is, it will likely be tough for Republicans to get a new speaker in.